Cities don't always fall with a bang. Some vanish in silence, abandoned by war, poisoned by industry, or frozen by tragedy. Left behind are empty streets, locked doors, and unanswered questions. These are not just ghost towns. They are forgotten blueprints of ambition, failure, and sometimes horror. From scorched American roads to overgrown English villages, these abandoned cities remind us that even the strongest empires leave shadows behind. Our journey begins deep beneath the surface of Pennsylvania, where an invisible fire still burns beneath a town that was forced to leave everything behind. Centriia USA. Once home to over 1,000 residents, Centriia was a quiet mining town in eastern Pennsylvania. That changed in 1962 when a fire meant to burn trash in a landfill accidentally ignited a coal seam beneath the town. At first, officials assumed it would burn out in days, but the fire found its way into the labyrinth of abandoned mines and kept spreading. Underground, it moved undetected, releasing carbon monoxide, creating ground fissures, and turning basements into death traps. Residents started noticing warm spots in the soil, gas leaking into homes, and roads cracking open without warning. By the 1980s, the situation was so dangerous that the federal government stepped in, offering buyouts to those willing to leave. Most did. Buildings were bulldozed, the zip code was revoked, and the remaining streets were swallowed by weeds. Today, only a handful of people remain. Smoke still rises from the ground, and warning signs line the once busy roads. Centralia isn't just abandoned, it's still burning. The fire could last another 250 years. What began as a simple trash fire has become one of America's most haunting environmental disasters. While Centralia burned, another American town simply dried up. Its gold, long gone, its population vanished, but its skeleton still standing under desert skies. Boddie, USA. Boddie was born in the gold rush and died by the Great Depression. In the late 1800s, it exploded into a booming mining town with more than 10,000 residents, over 60 saloons, gambling halls, a red light district, and even a sizable Chinatown. Fortune hunters flooded in, but so did crime. Shootings, robberies, and barroom brawls were daily occurrences. Harsh winters in the Sierra Nevada made survival difficult, and multiple fires, including one in 1892 and another in 1932, devastated large portions of the town. Still, as long as there was gold, Boddie endured. By the 1910s, the mines had mostly dried up, and families began to drift away. By 1940, the post office shut down, and Boddie was officially labeled a ghost town. In 1962, California stepped in to preserve what remained, designating it a state historic park. Under arrested decay, that means no building is restored, only stabilized. Inside, dust-covered furniture remains exactly where it was left. Canned food still sits on shelves. School books lie open on desks, frozen mid-lesson. Windows are cracked but not replaced. Though tourists now walk its silent streets, Boddie still feels abandoned, untouched, eerie, and locked in time. Crossing the Atlantic, we find a village in England that was silenced not by war or disaster, but by a government order that never reversed. Tynum, nestled in the rolling countryside of Dorset, England. Tynum was a quiet village that had existed for centuries. Families lived simple, rural lives, farming, fishing, attending church on Sundays, and sending their children to the village school. But everything changed in December 1943, during the height of World War II. The British War Office issued an evacuation notice, giving residents just 28 days to leave. The area was needed for military training and preparation for the D-Day landings. Villagers were told they could return after the war. They left keys in doors, food on tables, and handwritten notes asking officials to take care of their homes. But they were never allowed back. After the war, the Ministry of Defense retained control of the land, turning it into a permanent training ground. Tynum was sealed off, its homes slowly decaying, its gardens overgrown. Yet many structures still stand. Inside the schoolhouse, children's names remain on coat hooks. Desks are still lined up, as if waiting for class to resume. The stone church remains remarkably intact, still holding records of births, marriages, and deaths. Today, Tynum is occasionally open to visitors, but signs warn of unexploded ordnance nearby. It's not a town ruined by war. It's a village abandoned by bureaucracy, left in quiet suspension. Further south in France, one village was emptied in a single afternoon. Its people murdered, its buildings untouched, and its memory preserved in ash. Ordor Serglan, France. On June 10th, 1944, just 4 days after the Allied D-Day landings in Normandy, Nazi SS troops entered the quiet French village of Ordor Serglan in the Haute-Vienne region. Under the pretense of a routine identity check, they rounded up 642 civilians, 247 women, 205 children, and 190 men. What followed was one of the most horrific massacres on French soil during World War II. The men were locked in barns and machine gunned, then their bodies set on fire. The women and children were herded into the village church, where soldiers ignited an incendiary device. Those who tried to escape through windows were shot. Only a few survived. After the slaughter, the SS looted and burned the village. When the war ended, Charles de Gaulle made a historic decision, not to rebuild, but to preserve the ruins exactly as they were, as a permanent memorial. Today, rusting bicycles remain where they were last parked. Blackened sewing machines sit beside charred walls. The church bell tower looms overhead, cracked but standing. Visitors walk through this silence, past scorched cars, melted clocks, and plaques bearing names of entire families. Ordor Serglan isn't a ghost town. It's a crime scene preserved by time, where every ruined wall still remembers. But in Eastern Europe, it wasn't bullets or bombs that emptied a city. It was something invisible, odorless, and deadly. Pripyat, Ukraine. Built in 1970 in northern Ukraine, Pripyat was designed as a model Soviet city, home to the workers and families of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. It featured wide boulevards, modern high-rise apartments, hospitals, cultural centers, and an amusement park scheduled to open for May Day celebrations in 1986. But everything changed on April 26th, when reactor number 4 exploded during a late-night safety test gone wrong. The blast released massive amounts of radioactive material into the air. Despite the danger, residents weren't informed immediately. It wasn't until 36 hours later that buses arrived and the city's 49,000 residents were told to evacuate, most thinking they'd be gone for only a few days. They never returned. Today, Pripyat stands frozen in time. The Ferris wheel, which never carried a single rider, stands rusted and motionless. Classrooms are filled with decaying books, gas masks, and broken glass. Apartments still contains toys, shoes, and family photos, everything left behind in panic. Trees now grow inside stairwells. Foxes and wild dogs roam freely. Though guided tours are permitted in low radiation areas, much of the city remains dangerously contaminated. Pripyat is more than abandoned. It's a chilling reminder of human failure on a nuclear scale. Farther south, on a sun-soaked island in the Mediterranean, a beachside paradise now lies empty, its hotels crumbling, its streets frozen in 1974. Varosha, Cyprus, once a glamorous seaside district in Famagusta. Varosha was the crown jewel of the island's tourism boom in the 1960s and early 1970s. Celebrities, including Elizabeth Taylor and Brigitte Bardot, vacationed along its pristine beaches. The area boasted luxury hotels, upscale restaurants, designer boutiques, and a population nearing 40,000. But in July 1974, everything stopped. Following a Greek-backed coup aiming to unify Cyprus with Greece, Turkey launched a military invasion. As Turkish forces advanced, residents of Varosha fled, leaving homes, shops, and lives behind, expecting to return once the fighting ceased. But that return never came. The Turkish military fenced off the entire district, turning it into a sealed-off no-man's land. For decades, Varosha decayed untouched. Hotel balconies collapsed, lobbies filled with sand. Nature slowly consumed the modern paradise. Despite international condemnation, Turkish Cypriot authorities partially reopened the area in 2020 under military oversight. Some streets can now be visited, but much of Varosha remains off-limits. frozen in legal limbo. The beachfront lies empty. Skeletons of hotels overlook silent waves. Varosha isn't abandoned because of natural disaster or economic failure. It's a casualty of unresolved conflict, trapped between memory and power. And finally, deep in the Amazon rainforest lies an abandoned American dream where capitalism, rubber, and nature clashed, and nature won. Fordlandia, Brazil. In 1928, Henry Ford purchased a vast stretch of land in the Brazilian Amazon to create a rubber-producing city modeled after small-town America. He named it Fordlandia. His vision was ambitious. Neat suburban houses, American-style schools, hospitals, and even enforced rules about dress, diet, and alcohol. Workers were expected to eat hamburgers and attend square dances. But the plan unraveled fast. The rubber trees, planted too closely, were ravaged by pests and disease. The tropical climate and remote location confused Ford's US-based managers. Brazilian workers, frustrated by rigid schedules and foreign customs, eventually rioted. Malaria spread unchecked. Production stalled. By 1945, after millions of dollars in losses, Ford quietly abandoned the project. Today, Fordlandia's decaying structures still stand. Rusted water towers, collapsed homes, and factories swallowed by vegetation. It wasn't destroyed by nature or war. It collapsed under its own blind idealism, an American dream forced on soil that never asked for it, from coal fires to empty beach resorts. These places show us that cities don't just fall, they linger, echoing the decisions that built them and the ones that left them behind. These cities may be silent, but their stories still speak. Not warnings of ghosts, but of what's forgotten when progress moves on and history is left without a witness.